as the co-executive director of Ethereum Foundation, chatting with you about how AI and blockchain will coexist.
This might become almost like a political struggle of the future.
Pour some gasoline on the fire.
yeah, definitely. We talked about prediction markets and discovery of truth, the role of Ethereum as a global settlement layer.
Blockchain, then we have AI, then we have ZK, which is in between, then we have robotics, like embodied AI, physical locality and a cultural locality.
Very valuable insight, I think, for everyone as a
hybrid role that's kind of forming ideas and creativity.
Any market around ideas is just a market about the discovery of truth.
Mechanisms of curation
represents the social consensus of how much attention memes like prediction markets. But proof of humanity itself loses meaning. Then I don't want to anymore prove that I'm a human because it doesn't matter.
Governance and actually AI's increasing role in decision making.
We have the jailbreaking risk.
ZK, applying secrecy between certain things.
We become a bit like a hive mind, or we remain with privacy and then we remain humans.
Constantly, I think, searching for mirrors that reflect us back to us.
It separates the artist from a craftsman.
Internally, mine our own latent space. How does this actually affect history and all the versions of history?
Leading to some of the novel NFT concepts.
Because art essentially is like the most potent communicator of sometimes these very abstract ideas.
Avoiding global identities and thinking that I want to have multiple identities. I want to have localized identities.
Advancing the application layer for Ethereum.
This is an essence of innovations. Tech and art. This is when you have the real creativity and real progress.
Reflection of the spider web, but the droplet is not the spider web.
You have unique view on it, being both an artist and technologies organizer, coordinator. It's amazing to understand then your contributions to the Ethereum network that it really started many of the categories. This might be of extreme value to society. And at some point you may arrive at this question of does it even matter?
Welcome, Tomasz. As the co-executive director of Ethereum Foundation, I'm looking forward to chatting with you about how AI and blockchain will coexist and what this means for the future of finance, governance, and robotics. Maybe we can start off with your thoughts about, in this environment where we have the speed of light of information, how do you see the ecosystem evolving?
Yeah, thank you for having me. That's a great place to be, and spending time with Network School on the last day and talking to people about the ideas. That's very inspiring on my side as well. So yeah, we were talking about looking at future of Ethereum and answering questions about how the hierarchy of networks and blockchains will look, and whether there are limits of centralization, whether there is support for decentralization that is almost like inherent to the physics laws. And yeah, it feels that the most basic term, the block propagation, the network topology, the ability to shorten the slot time, shorten the block times on Ethereum networks, all is affected by the latencies that we observe between different network points. And we're talking here about the single block and arriving at consensus on that single block level. So that really creates the definition of how much of action on the financial markets you can execute locally and how much information you can pass between the local market and a more global aggregation, and how really the role of Ethereum as a global settlement layer is defined by those limitations, like the propagation of information, the OODA loop, the Science Plan Act, when we talk about the embodied AI, the data centers, when they collect information, when they observe, when they react, and they have that round trip delay. They can do that on a level of a single city with a few milliseconds delay. They can do that on the regional level, with like maybe tens or hundreds of milliseconds level, and then you coordinate on the global scale with Ethereum. So there is definitely something that talks about the hierarchy where some specific layer 2s go to the regional markets. Maybe some low latency solutions go to city level markets, let it be large financial centers. And this is not only about finance. However, in finance, it's like very, very easy to distill and look at, say, the ability of the local arbitrager to extract all the value locally through regulating the markets locally, but then having to pass that aggregated information to more global arbitrage, but then also through these limitations of speed of light. It means that any kind of overly centralizing force that arrives to the central market can be rejected by the local market that is much more efficient in coordinating the local defense in a financial sense or even in a physical sense. If we have embodied AI or the idea like drone swarms that delay the latency of coordination from the central point on the distance, it's really negated by the local decentralized coordination of defenders. And very valuable insight, I think, for everyone is like motivating us to work on the systems and blockchain systems is that any improvement in the local decentralized coordination supports decentralization naturally. So if we improve the algorithms, if we improve the systems infrastructure for decentralized coordination, then it's much harder to overcome that local defense in the financial sense or any other through the centralized control from afar. So it can be like one financial center trying to extract value from remote markets. It can be some kind of like drone conflict or other options like that.
I see. So beyond kind of the financial arbitrage of local markets, can you maybe tell us a bit more about kind of just kind of your thoughts about this notion of embodied AI in these types of networks and maybe how they coordinate using these technologies?
Yeah, sure. There are companies nowadays using Ethereum and Ethereum concepts, building layer 2s for coordination of embodied AI of robots working together. There's lots of discussion of how to define the identity of robots or the ownership, verification of their actions, all of that matters. Now, most of the use cases nowadays obviously are not on the level of milliseconds, microseconds for robotic systems. We're really talking about robots that move slowly, that move more strategically, and maybe more likely we're thinking of building the physical markets, the yield from robotic entrepreneurship, like robotaxis or robots working on the farms, like remote farms operation, where you can have yield and allocation of what type of robots you would like and like what type of investment you would like to get in agriculture to get yield. So all of that matters, and there are various aspects. So one is simply defining robotic systems and investing in robots. It can be even like franchise for coffee making. I don't know if you've seen lots of cobots now being designed as barista level coffee makers. It's no longer the coffee that you think, that's cool that it's a robot, but it doesn't taste good. It's cool that it's a robot and it tastes great because it repeats the actions of the top baristas. So now when you have this, you can also have a provider, a supplier of robots selling directly to the market, to the investors that think of it a bit like a micro investments that choose a location and say, let's deploy a robot there. And then again, the question is how quickly you can react to the local market. So we talked a bit yesterday about the physical distance, and that's where you talk about speed of light, and that's coordination of very fast reacting systems. But we talked also about, and you actually gave me this thought of cultural distance. The market distance, understanding of the local market, understanding of the culture, and then again, it's protecting the centralization, because it says you cannot invest in machines that are related to the daily life of a particular location. Most likely that value will be captured by local markets because they understand the culture. The cultural distance is very low, so you know exactly what type of food to prepare, where to deploy the robots, and so on. So it stays.
Like a physical locality and a cultural locality, you know.
Exactly.
And it's really interesting because cultural locality in today's age is very much not defined by sometimes geography. It's, as Balaji says, like all of these cultures are made in the cloud first. So it's kind of interesting to just also see how humans between these different nodes of cultures interact, and maybe, I mean, we spoke about local arbitrage of finance, but then also like how does that apply to culture? That's something interesting to think about. But speaking more about humans, actually, I think I kind of started noticing by speaking with a lot of people running companies and being in large teams is maybe like 3 years ago, all the roles were very, very, let's say, defined, you know, like, and they were kind of like very different. But now what we're kind of seeing is that like all the roles are almost kind of like melting and becoming very similar, where we have a human interacting with the AI model and then almost like outsourcing some part of the technical expertise. And you can kind of see like, you know, people who are devs doing this, like with code. You have people who are supposed to, I don't know, create, let's say even like marketing material. They're kind of all kind of, it's almost like this like weird hybrid role that's kind of forming, where everybody, it kind of comes down to a human interacting with a LLM. And in this environment, ideas and creativity, I feel, become very, very important. So I'm thinking, what are your thoughts about idea propagation in this environment?
We discussed it yesterday a lot. The pace at which we can generate ideas, and also how open and how permissionless and how efficient the idea market is. And I was exploring that space of if I am creating memes, ideas, and talk about them. And very often this is discussed in the aspect of entrepreneurship, right? So you say entrepreneur is afraid that their idea will be used by someone else. Now, why am I afraid that my idea will be used by someone else? Because the market is inefficient. It means that if I simply release the idea, I have to merge it with execution. I have to provide some execution. People say ideas are cheap, execution matters. But I have to be in the environment that will support the execution on top of my idea, which means that very often I move to those more centralized ideas and execution markets, that it be Bay Area or Hangzhou in China or some other markets that are very well developed. So you have access to local talent, you have access to capital that says, oh yeah, this is cool, do it, run with it. Now, if I'm in a market that is not developed, then suddenly my idea is either lost, I don't have distribution, and maybe it's copied by someone else who has much more of a proximity to capital. Now, a very efficient market would tell me that I can distill the value of idea, and whenever I announce it, I never have to worry about the idea being copied, because and we're comparing that to a bit of like proof of work block propagation. In the network where always the one who finds the solution first captures the value, because by the design of the network, you win for the distribution of that block that you found. It's very easily comparable to idea. If I have an idea and I distribute it very efficiently on the network, then anyone who discovers that idea would prefer to immediately invest in it rather than copy it, because if they copy it in an efficient market, they're slightly behind.
So it's like searching for the ideas in this space is almost like searching for the nouns in the proof of work.
Yeah, exactly. And the more ideas you can generate, and this comes back to your question about AI and human interaction, the complex things nowadays, we expect that they will only come from humans, like the real novelty. But we have this feeling that maybe more and more often we'll see LLMs arriving at some novelty, generating ideas that at least require some attention, some verification. So now if as humanity we're generating some ideas and it was bound to legitimacy, and maybe like proof of humanity was just assumed, nowadays we either have to build more powerful proof of humanity, but proof of humanity itself loses meaning if the ideas from LLMs start to be worth as much. Because why would I prove? I want to prove I'm a human if I'm consistently always better than any machine-generated content. But if machine-generated content sometimes has enough of the value that it attracts the attention of the real valuable verifiers, then I don't want to anymore prove that I'm a human, because it doesn't matter. It's just the idea by itself in the essence matters. The thing is, then more and more ideas can be generated, right? Like and it's taking more and more effort to verify, to validate all of the ideas, and it all just melts into this generation proof of work, like searching for the entire space of possible ideas, almost just randomly generating them and verifying. And AI can do it very efficiently in the data center, so it just goes through millions of ideas, billions of ideas, and release to the public only some that at least go through the local verification, which is very similar to what like proof of work mining does. It verifies it locally, and if it works, it pushes it further.
Totally.
It's like 0-1 concept of the idea. Maybe it might be a bit more continuous space.
Yeah, something came up now in my mind as you're talking about this is actually kind of analyzing the just in general like content creation nowadays, and how a lot of people and content creators are actually almost having this hybrid form where they're essentially prompting LLMs. The LLMs are giving them the scripts that they should read, which could also be connected with like optimizing the text and the keywords for to kind of embed certain emotions in viewers and so on. And then the human is almost like performing the idea from the AI on a certain topic as this kind of almost like a performative intermediary of that idea to the global audience. And then like in this world where we have this kind of almost like a synthetic human performed AI content, I think that's very, very interesting to kind of see how it evolves then, because essentially seems like what then starts to become the differentiator, at least in human content, is actually the tone and the authenticity with which you are actually delivering certain messages or thoughts. Otherwise, most people might assume this is like just a purely generated performative idea. But also I think it kind of highlights this notion where even with LLMs, we're kind of constantly, I think, searching for mirrors that reflect us back to us. And, like we have some sort of like a idea space or like a direction where we want to go. And then we're essentially prompting the idea, almost like mining, to get something that resembles this vision that we have of either our future self or a certain concept. And it's kind of almost like providing us more clarity and chiseling this kind of maybe direction that we want. And I think that's something very interesting that I'm noticing.
It might be that artistic concept of on one side you have an idea and something that you want to say, which is very compressed form. It might be even existing in your mind without words, without visual form by itself. There is some essence of everything that you learned about life, about art, something that you want to express. And then you internally decompress it into some visual form or some whatever artistic form, artistic expression or content expression. Yeah. Now, LLMs kind of take away that effort of decompressing the essence of thing that we want to say. However, if you do it nonetheless in your mind, that you start comparing what LLM generated and does it really act as that mirror, showing the same form that you imagined, right? So I guess it almost like separates the artist from a craftsman. That many of the artists that we really admired for hundreds of years were both the great artists. They were able to express ideas that are novel, synthesizing the great things about humanity. But they were also great craftsmen. They were able to paint, to use the words with craft, to use any visual form and deliver it to others. But now we say that LLMs can take over a bit that craft part, but leave to you the essence. And it's not really that we just perform what LLM creates. We both initiate it. Exactly. LLM just decompresses it, delivers the craft, and then we perform the final thing of being more like bringing it back to the human tone, right?
Totally. And that initiating, like that seed, let's say, that kind of starts all of these things, I feel that it's actually going to be one of the big trends that will come up next. So the way I see it is 10 years ago, nobody really cared about meditation, especially like in the business space. It wasn't as mainstream. Now everybody has, my morning meditation routine, Then after that, longevity became the next trend, which we're still kind of in, which all of these things are beautiful. I'm really happy to see them. But even meditation 10 years ago, if you were doing it, people were like, oh, you're not being efficient, you're losing time, But sometimes sometimes inefficiency creates actually the best output in the long term. And now to bring it back to kind of what I see as the next trend, so we had meditation, longevity, and I feel like the next trend, which will probably happen in the next 5 years, is actually going to be creativity and people realizing that kind of practicing the same way meditation helps you strengthen your muscle of being present, being calm, being aware of your thoughts. I think creativity will actually strengthen this muscle of knowing better yourself, knowing what you communicate, and actually helping you come up with better approaches to communicate with LLMs and actually generate those interesting ideas. So even like drawing or painting or like thinking about art, I think will be soon regarded as ways of strengthening that muscle. And at the end, that's the only thing that separates me from you. Like, you know, if we both work with the same type of LLM, it's just like how do we kind of internally mine our own latent space and find these interesting ideas we want to express, and then in collaboration with these other models, kind of bring it to the world, which I guess could kind of lead us into, once some of these ideas are actually created and defined, what are your thoughts in regards to maybe kind of having like a layer of tokenizing some of these ideas, or having some system that incentivizes people not to copy other ideas if they came first, but maybe invest in them? Or like, do you have any thoughts regarding that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, coming back also, maybe you mentioned meditation. Maybe meditation is actually getting rid of any type of form on top of the essence and coming back to essence and thinking like discarding all the ways of expressing the essence. So because meditation very often says like let all the forms, like the words to flow, and then discard them. I don't meditate in the sense that is known for people as like the spiritual aspect of it and taking time. But I think I do meditate if I'm having coffee in the morning and I slow down for a moment, and if I look for the window and I look at the green space, or lie on the sofa for a moment, or drive a car, that's when I meditate, because I start to let all of these ideas flow and think of what was really real and important. And you mentioned to look now at, I drifted away too far, bring me back to
look about like maybe tokenization.
Tokenization. So that comes back also to that proof of work aspect. The tokenization of an idea means that you maybe go back to the concepts of a price of a carrier of knowledge. You want to say that the idea is immediately converted into something that can carry information about its virality, explosiveness, and a half-life, and how long it will feed the other ideas and will generate opportunity to execute and generate value, which means that a token representing the price of an idea, and by itself, by the price over time, representing the half-life, the explosiveness, like the chart itself represents what that idea carry, and in a very, very efficient market, the tokens or memes become really almost like the most basic primal form of expressing the price as a carrier of knowledge between the local community, the culturally local community that can be even in the digital space, or geographically local expression of the price of a commodity or the stock. Also as an idea of what a collection of ideas. So I say that there is very likely something in the essence of ideas, of pushing them, tokenizing immediately, to capture that separation of an idea from a form, idea from execution. So if I say that as an artist I create idea and then I perform, performance is an execution. And the same way an entrepreneur creates an idea of a value creation and then performs by executing. So very, very efficient markets, also in traditional financial markets, really allow us to separate multiple components of the same thing, right? First we create a bond, and then we say, well, the bond can be stripped into the coupon payments and so on. So all the efficient markets separate things to the most basic components to provide more of the opportunity to removing the risk, to allow for specialization. And I think it's the same in the entrepreneurship. First you talk about something and you want to be that idea generator. Even if you're a terrible executor, you would like to capture that. And that comes a bit in the accelerators, incubators. Very often people who organize them invite the executors, but they say, these are all the ideas that we have. I think about Y Combinator. They say, well, we invite people to talk about those things, those things. These are the ideas. And they say, we need people who want to execute. If you don't have to anymore be be an accelerator, but simply generate ideas and throw them everywhere, tokenize them immediately, and you know that they will leave and they'll just like license these ideas to the executors, then you can focus on that only.
Interesting. That's very, very, very fascinating. What do you think in that environment? I mean, you mentioned memes, and it's kind of interesting to analyze the notion of kind of memes almost like competing with each other, some memes winning and then spreading. I'm curious, what do you think are going to be some of the mechanisms of curation that maybe arise for this, like all of these ideas? Because we'll have basically an infinite supply of ideas very soon.
I think that general AI verifiability, it becomes like AI versus AI generator, maybe hybrid with the person, as you said, like the person working with the AI as a craftsman. The other AI is allowing you to churn billions of ideas. And then everything that emerges as the financial markets, as the governance, because the ideas also lead the structure, the organization, which is governance. Like and we talked about that the social consensus layer around Ethereum or other network, you have social consensus as a coordination of ideas between people with a lot of legitimacy, lots of knowledge, expertise. So it's meritocracy, but within that meritocracy, still you have people that express the ideas that are a bit like they spend months or years to generate research and provide the idea and propose it in some form, and other people review it, and I expect that the reviewers, the verifiers, are also quite knowledgeable. But the better the AI LLM systems get, the more they can participate in that process as well. So then you have this hybrid governance system that also affects core development, and then it leads to almost like a proof of work, like social consensus, because whoever can generate and verify more of the proposals, the more they can keep pushing protocol in some direction.
Totally.
So you have proof of work that switched to proof of stake. Proof of stake creates some stability. Proof of work on top of it represents the social consensus of how much attention you want to allocate to a particular problem, to a particular protocol challenge or political challenge. So those are the forms that arrive in the governance. The sheer memes or like prediction markets, almost like a subset of memes, idea markets. All of those help to structure that, and very often they use the decentralization as a base. And almost like coming back to those limitation of the speed of light, you have support for very decentralized local systems for ideas, because ideas might be relevant also only within some cultural context, only with some geographical context. Your action on the financial market may only matter for a particular region. Your content creation, or even, and this is what we've touched, and that's just all connects nicely, but it's very different representation. We talked about prediction markets and discovery of truth. Like the truth is kind of long-term, attracts attention, you can bet on it to survive, but there's lots of very viral lies that you actually even think, I can bet on it because I know that it will explode for a moment and disappear, because the lies don't have the verifiability aspect, but they do have the virality aspect.
And the volatility aspect,
And it's two different markets. It's like the explosive short-term market and a bit harder to verify truth market.
But
so
more steady growth over time.
So ideas connect with, like ideas are about what's the real answer to things. The researcher thinks, this is the problem and I'm trying to find answers. If the researcher proposes a wrong hypothesis, is it a lie or is it just a wrong path? So then if we're searching for an answer to to criminal investigation, if we answer it wrong, is it a lie or is it a mistake? And then you can say that any market around ideas is just a market about the discovery of truth, and the market about discovery of what is long term is about discovery of truth. But also we talked about the artistic aspect. In the cultural sense, sometimes people would prefer to pay for the lies, for the imagination, for the generation, for simulations of the local reality that doesn't have. We not necessarily want the truth, because sometimes we want entertainment. And then we start playing with virality, with advertising, with content creation.
You pour some gasoline on the fire.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's very fascinating. I mean, I think it also kind of feeds very nicely into actually governance and actually AI's increasing role in decision making, kind of seeing this actually increase and more things kind of being to a certain extent outsourced to AIs for some decision-making parts. So yeah, I'm just kind of curious maybe how you see that evolve or the next couple of years as, like, for example, I was just reading this today, like if you ask AI for advice and you don't really understand the answer, but you do it, and then it ends up being right because maybe it understands the deeper context, it sees behind the corners, and then next time it asks you to, you ask it for advice, you kind of blindly trust it again, and you do it, it works again. The third time, you're also probably going to follow. And, we can probably see this like extrapolated in our society, like on many levels. So, yeah, what are your thoughts about that? And, yeah, how do you see that evolving?
But I feel like much of politics and governance as it exists today, it's similar. We rely on some people to represent us. We do election, voting, we follow influencers, and they say one thing right, the second thing right, and we start trusting them, and we start promoting them as the representatives of our own voice. And without constantly verifying and checking, we may start promoting people that were right for a short, brief period of time. It's about the same as LLM representing us if we rely on it and we don't check. Now, are these very natural solutions where you have multiple LLMs verifying themselves and then reputation built into the identity of the LLM systems? I think this is where blockchain cryptography comes to help, and this verifiability of the consistent identity of models. So if I trust this model one, second time, third time, nobody changes that model entirely and starts sharing the lie while we're still believing in it. So if I verify that it's not changing, that it was trained properly, I start seeking the truth, which is more long-term, and I want to invest in it. So governance, we see examples of the political systems where they say, oh, we replaced one of the ministries with the AI system. I think I've heard that about Albania.
I think.
And then something was also proposed as the legislation in one of the UAE or Middle East countries, I'm not sure, when they said some of the laws will be written by AI and verified probably by humans. So this happens more and more often. We have the jailbreaking risk. And when you read about Pliny and explorations, what they do there, they can break any system. Now, if you present them a group of people or a single person, say, try to jailbreak, persuade them to do something, probably every person being totally disconnected from any other defense line and talking and verifying with others would somehow be persuaded to do almost anything. Like whether you bring there a mathematician, a leader, whoever, you can keep talking and bringing lies and convincing that this is like, I am this, this is the circumstance, you have to do it, or this is urgent. So we have the same problem with LLMs, but the systems, the organizations that we've built in governance, they already help us to prevent bribery, persuasion, collusion in the systems with many people, with many agents involved. So we can probably build similar systems around AI. Just that the AI very often is like very unequal. Sometimes it behaves like a 2-year-old. Sometimes it behaves like a PhD level person, depending on the context. So over time, we should have more predictability. And then there is this lack of erosion. Like if you build a system that is verifiable, consistent, you can give it governance of something simple and say, from now on, this will be really well governed for a long time. And it might be some local, like the single building community trying to govern how they manage the renovation, how they choose the suppliers, and say, okay, the system will not be bribed, or any bribery will be very transparent because everyone can track it on chain. So you see the selection process. This might be of extreme value to society. Removal of the very, very expensive and inconsistent governance models, the ones where people stop being interested. I think as a career path, it's a bit like people start doing something, but then they grow, they want to do something else, and that system erodes because no longer paying attention.
Totally. I mean, one of these things that you just mentioned now kind of reminded me, we spoke a bit about like novel mediums that, today's culture brings us, especially thanks to blockchains and cryptography. And one of the kind of most exciting mediums that I think we have currently is also zero-knowledge proofs. And kind of thinking, how can we use ZK as a way to kind of increase privacy, but then also kind of as this almost like medium for secrecy, And I think in these networked environments, now when we have like this notion of applying secrecy between certain things, or revealing partially certain ideas or things, or curating based on certain data that can be verified. I think that's a very exciting field that's, I think, yet to be fully embraced. How do you kind of see the role of ZK as this evolves?
I think especially in the context of agents, we talk about identity arriving only from privacy. Like the private context is almost the only thing that defines identity. The training of a model, the preparation of an agent can be cloned. The context can be cloned, but if you're cloning the context, it's like abusing the privacy of the model.
Yeah.
Well, we don't worry about it nowadays, but when you think about people, you have some kind of representing identity, cloning identity as a name or passport. I can do that, but then I want to learn about all the private context that person has, which is like all the memories that we have, all our behaviors. And this is hard, and this is what we want to protect, right? So ZK technology, like cryptography in general, comes to massive help with it. On Ethereum, we see entire layer 2 is built around the privacy concept. So we see Aztec, we see Maiden, like Ethereum Foundation now pushed a lot on the privacy initiatives. We brought PSE under the privacy of EF, so privacy cluster. Igor Barinov and Andy Guzman are leading this now, and we care. And you mentioned this as a medium of expression for the privacy, for secrecy. Medium of expression because it allows us to stay humans in a way. Like, so, you know, the FreeSap project, when you talk to the founders, they're super inspiring. They talk about the identity as a protection of identity as the only way of preserving humanity. And I think this is what most people care about now. Either we end up sharing everything and we become a bit like a hive mind, or we remain with privacy and then we remain humans. And this might become almost like a political struggle of the future, because nowadays you have lots of we go this way or that way that defines the political divide. So maybe the hive mind versus humanity and privacy is the other battle of the future of how we want to act as a society in a collective way or very individual way.
Yeah, totally. Because it also might be, to a certain extent, you might want to have some aspects of your own, I guess, like knowledge graph be available for other people and your friends to maybe reference or shared. But other parts you actually want to be like deeply hidden. So I think that actually has a very, very, seems like a very logical progression.
There's selective disclosure, like there's the ZK protocol supporting here. What do you want to say about yourself? Exactly. And also when we talk about identity, kind of avoiding global identities and thinking that I want to have multiple identities. I want to have localized identities. I want to have an identity in some community. I want to have identity in a country, in some industry. But I don't want to have a single thing that will forever force me to manage global reputation of myself, because especially being humans, we fail, we make mistakes. So I want to research, start again, create multiple identities. And this is also a bit of our selective management of the context of privacy, sometimes as a defense way, like we create the separation even in our minds, right? Like in the extreme cases, this is how people defend themselves. So we would ideally have that level of defense supported by technology, and not by people struggling to build that separation.
Interesting. And I really, since we spoke yesterday about this topic, it really stayed in my mind about kind of when we have AI being completely capable of convincing us almost in anything, like how does this actually affect history and all the versions of history? And like, should history or like present, I guess, start being like hashed or inscribed or something like that on blockchains to kind of preserve certain versions? How is your kind of, what are your thoughts in that regard, like regarding history and not just future?
Yeah, this is maybe like a side quest here in this conversation, because it's one of the early explorations of mine when I was joining the blockchain industry in 2017. I was thinking of how at that time everyone was starting to talk about fake news, right? That's why we are. It feels like ages ago now. The problems are much larger than that. So now you have fake videos, fake reality almost very soon, I think. So this comes back to questions: how do we prove that something is real, as truth? And when you start looking into it more and more and more, then at some point you may arrive at this question of, does it even matter? What is truth? And it partially affects the locality versus global aspect, that if I can create a very convincing simulation reality around me locally, then it's not truth, but it becomes really part of my life, whether it's digital or like simulation, AI simulation. I will be asking those questions before in the future. Now, history is one aspect of truth. We think that there is one version of history and it's truth, and we use it for backtesting. Backtesting, not only in the sense of it comes from the financial markets terminology, right? You build a model and you backtest that model against all the market events, but you also kind of backtest politics. Like the politicians say, read the history books, learn from history, and that's how they backtest what they want to do. They think of this policy and they look in the history books and say, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened. And by analogy, they think, oh, if I do that, this might be a mistake. They didn't predict it. It's backtesting as well. And now the question is, if we can spend enough resources on generating multiple different histories, if we spend enough of compute, then this compute almost might be like more compute than the compute that we actually use to create history, the real history. And then it means that new history that we computed becomes the same relevant. And it's a bit like synthetic data for AI training. You create synthetic data, and it means that you can also create synthetic history of humanity. And then you stop maybe even caring about the real single history of humanity, because all of them that were given the same compute power are equivalent in a way of how much teaching they bring. Now, when you think about it even deeper, we know that the historians create history, which means that they actually have been doing that for thousands of years. They were creating for us synthetic view of the history. We're trying to discover the truth, but really we're waiting from the source. We were learning from the sources, and the sources were lost, and then you were learning from historians, and the winners were writing history, which means that most likely we already see as something that's very much distorted. If we learn to create those different histories, then maybe this is not so scary that we're losing a single one, because we gain all of potential histories, and it's more like what we are in a given moment, both defines the future paths that we usually care about in trading, but also past paths that we care about in learning.
So you're saying the lessons we can learn from synthetic histories could actually be as equally valuable as this version of this?
It puts a bit more of effort on a focus on now rather than history. Like that, what we are now for sure was affected by truth. And if it was affected by truth, it means there's like a compression version of history, and you can decompress all the potential pasts that lead to the truth, and the more true ones are more likely.
Interesting. And so speaking about all of these like different versions, and I kind of think it's a good point to maybe touch upon maybe a cross-pollination of different industries, and maybe how you see this maybe helping with kind of advancing the application layer for Ethereum and other projects.
I think that we went through the restructuring of the protocol of ecosystem development teams, clusters at Ethereum Foundation, and when you create teams that are having an essence of some aspect, like the privacy team, enterprise team, founder success team, ZKVM team, all of those teams are highly specialized and can solve some problems, but very often the only place where you solve the actual real-world problem is when you have a synergy of two teams. It might be ZKVM and founder success and AI, enterprise team and academia team. So they are very specialized and efficient at execution, but only when they tackle a problem by a bit more unique way of looking at it, and combining the efforts of two categories of things, that's when you can deliver application solutions. It's a bit like matching problem with the solution. These are two things, or matching like two ways of looking at it. You see, it's the mathematics, right? Like many of the breakthroughs in mathematics in the last 30, 40 years were specifically by applying totally different category of thinking, a different field of mathematics into the previous one. So that's how major conjectures are being proven and so on. Now, we want to see it internally in Ethereum ecosystem, because this is an essence of innovation. So when we see network school, when we see pop-up cities, when we see like Frontier Tower, when we see teams in the Ethereum Foundation, when we see the efforts of building events which bring together people from tech and finance, tech and fashion, tech and art, this is when you have the real creativity and a real progress. And that's why we put so much effort into bringing people together. That's why cities thrived. That's why the online communities thrived, and that's why bringing researchers and technologies together thrived in Skunkworks or Bell Labs and so on. Now we have it digital. Physical spaces we still want to create it because there's still something human magical in bringing people together.
Yeah, I mean, we do have this kind of like illusion of that with Slack, and kind of you feel like you walked into a digital office, and but it is always different when you actually bump into somebody you meet at the cafeteria, and I think that's where there's those like genuine connections and actually light bulb moments come, which I think is very, very interesting. And also like sometimes people from different industries can notice patterns in a different way, and I think that's why, for example, at Network School, that's amazing. There's like all of these different fields of people, like from synthetic biology to like blockchain to AI, and like we're all kind of living together, and we're almost like forced to interact. And even I spoke with a bunch of people that I wouldn't have otherwise, and actually expanded my consciousness and awareness of certain topics, and just got me like a more holistic, deeper understanding of things, which otherwise I thought like, oh, I know this, but then you speak with somebody and it's like completely like from a different angle, and you're like, wow, it's kind of this metaphor of, like the reality being this spider web in the morning with a bunch of little, droplets. And then each droplet essentially has like a reflection of the whole spider web. And that's how we see actually humans, each one of us has our own reflection of the spider web, but the droplet is not the spider web. So when you combine multiple of these, I think like really magical things can happen.
By becoming spiders and building the spider webs, networks, connecting humans, connecting technology, all matters. And you have unique view on it, being both an artist and technologies organizer, coordinator. That's amazing to understand then your contributions to the Ethereum network that it really started many of the categories. And this matters nowadays as well. You mentioned that Network School brings people together, cafeteria on top within Network School brings those people also to the same physical space, and it creates those meeting points that are relevant for innovation.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I think we touched upon a lot of these like very important aspects of our culture. We have like blockchain, then we have AI, then we have kind of ZK, which is in between, then we have robotics, like embodied AI, then we had like all of these different arbitrages, local and cultural and actually global in many ways. Is there any other field that you think is kind of let's say on your mind, or like something that you've been like reading or researching that maybe you would add to some of these like very interesting things?
I think each of the communities that bring people together has something unique, as like some of them focus more on governance and DAOs. So there was example with Switzerland, I think. Some others on like you see network states here, Network School and longevity and blockchain. Some others are very specifically focused more on the human experience, longevity, the health aspects. So the robotics comes to Network School, I believe, and to many other communities. Is there something that I would bring on top of it? Art is there as well. Like some of those communities, I remember Edge City with the artists meeting together and creating and leading to some of the novel NFT concepts. No, I don't think that anything specifically is missing if you look at it.
I do think though that the role of art is kind of being like understated a bit. And when we look at history, like most big movements were kind of inspired by art, because art essentially is like the most potent communicator of sometimes these very abstract ideas. So it can really help bridge this gap from people who are deeply like in the research and maybe non-technical people. So I think like that's something that, collectively, I think we're already starting to realize, and I feel it might kind of get slowly embraced, more and more. How do you see maybe like the role of cultural and cultural production and art within maybe just the Ethereum ecosystem?
Well, the NFTs were almost like a driver of one of the major moments when lots of attention was targeted at Ethereum. And it continuously, like, we explore through NFTs, bringing artists to Ethereum, bringing them to, inviting them to events, or letting them to invite us to their events, to talk about the essence of things, to have this observation of reality that says, look, this is what happens in the world now. And sometimes artists really detect the moment, which is still very vague and very, very delicate, and it really drives what the future will be.
Yeah.
So this is that learning, and very often the way of expressing is very different. So you cannot formalize it yet. So it's like a beginning of research. It's the same as artists as writers, science fiction writers that tell us a bit of where the future is.
Yes.
Why so many entrepreneurs name their projects or drive their projects by the ideas that were coming from the science fiction books.
Yeah.
Because those people were artists that tell us very, very early what they imagine, what they feel about the world that is coming. So if you invite artists to community, it means that maybe you start talking about something that is 50 years forward, and because the world is accelerating so much, it means that probably it's 2 or 5 years forward, and it means that it's maybe even not too early to already start working on it. So maybe the art and execution of entrepreneurial spirit become very much close in time, and you should have more and more artists in all the space, because the craft becomes easier to reach. So, like, would you expect that it leads to such a compression that an artist becomes an executor, that in the end it's not even the idea creator, but it's the artist that ends up using the LM directly to create the future and solve problems based on the artistic expression?
I mean, many ways, the way artists operate is usually they're kind of like, they get inspired, which kind of could serve also as a prompt, and they have to like go through the research phase, then the creation phase. But this actually reminds me of a kind of a project that was happening in the 60s, actually, I believe in London, called the Artist Placement Groups, where it was like a huge project that wanted to actually involve and put artists in places they were never really a part of, like governments, companies. And it was really beautiful to kind of see all the changes that caused. So I think what you're saying actually really, really resonates a lot.
I was going through that process. I started going to the meetup groups where I tried to escape the bubble, like the social media bubble. And I was creating accounts that had absolutely no trace of information about me, that would show me some meetup events that I felt like I would almost scroll to the very end to find something that I would feel like I would never go there. And I pick up some of those events and go and listen what people say, and really pushing yourself out of this bubble, pushing yourself. Then you realize, oh, this is what very often you go through in the formative years when you mix with the kids in school, when everyone is still choosing where they'll be. That's when you have lots of conversations with people that in the future will be actually creators in totally different industry. And it's such a fantastic experience when you can learn. And then you stay more and more in your niche, and you have to kick yourself out of this. And the network school or other pop-up cities are opportunity for that. It still pushes you to specific type of people that are more entrepreneurial, ready to travel, ready to co-live, ready to experiment with blockchain. Sometimes you want to go totally different opposite direction and go like, maybe I should go to my hometown and find the place where are people who would never leave the place where they started, and realize that dark talent is there as well. That dark talent can be among the people that decided that you can create and build without ever rejecting your origin and a place where you are placed, and you can still be super, super impactful, which maybe in combination with that locality and the speed of light limitation in the future will matter the most, because you'll be really hyper focused on this cultural vicinity.
Yeah, totally. Do you want to just explain how do you see dark talent? What it represents for you?
Oh, well, I'm just learning about the dark talent now by just coming to network school, listening to the recent talks from Balaji. I know that as a concept, it's nothing novel, but we start talking about the exploration of places where normally people are not connected to probably to education, to opportunity to execute. They're not in Bay Area, but they're entrepreneurial. They're not in Cambridge, but are ready to be PhD and innovators and researchers. And you want to discover, and it comes as every single time you learn somewhere that someone late in their career discovers that they were genius, and someone like the recent Fields Medal winner who starts mathematics at the age of 16 or so, and discovers that it's capable of combining those disciplines. So this is a discovery of their talent, and technology definitely helps with this. I was thinking about ideas like Starling and combined with the LLM and LLM translating anything to your local language, and suddenly you in a smaller town in a underdeveloped economy, you get connected somehow by the programs. Probably the programs support you to the internet, like Starling, and get the LLM access that translates that to your obscure local language. And from the age of 3, 4, you start having access to all the knowledge about the world, translated to your language perfectly, which normally wouldn't be possible. I was reading about the case of, like the Japan in the 19th century, I believe, when it was massively translating all the texts, European texts to Japanese, and how it initiated the jump and the technology and the industrialization. So the same should be happening very soon with the global access for talent to all the history, all the truth of humanity. Even if history doesn't matter, they'll be able to create their stories and probably start adding their culture to our culture.
Totally.
And this is always a beautiful process when you go to the new cultures and realize that by accelerating them to the modern times, well, they do that themselves. But they accelerate to all the communication space and share it with us, and they share, look how beautiful our culture is, and we integrate that and we make it a bit more global, but also keep some uniqueness. This will be even more and more open. So on one side it will be culture, on the other side it will be more talent, and then you combine it with AI, and then you ask for the essence of those cultures, which might be very, very unique and something that we missed before.
Totally. I mean, imagine how many geniuses were kind of overlooked just because of their location or lack of resources or exposure. Like that's truly I feel like one of the biggest losses to humanity when you think about it. How many creative geniuses of different fields could have happened. But hopefully now with this like more interconnected space, we actually end up resurfacing a lot of that talent. And but anyway, thank you so much. Really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for visiting us at the Network School. And thank you also for all the beautiful things you're doing for building and making like Ethereum, amazing infinite garden that we all love to play in and spend our time in.
Thank you. I think that as we talk here, much of it was inspired by this short visit here at Network School, and I'm pretty sure that many of the conversations we had yesterday would drive the thinking. So that's the great effect of connecting and talking, and so I can have more podcasts, more conversations, more ideas to build.
Totally. Well, beautiful, and looking forward to see you in some other node maybe soon.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Woo!